Everybody, welcome to the check-in. It's the Winnipeg Jets taking on the Red Wings here at Canada Life Center, the final game of a 3-game homestand. The Jets will go on a 4-game road trip after this game. They'll get to go to sunny Florida, which I'm sure all of us would be very jealous about considering this atrocious weather that we're dealing with on a daily basis. Sara is taking the day off. She needed a break. I'm just kidding. She's off having some fun this weekend. She'll be back the next time the Jets play, which will be against the New Jersey Devils, the beginning game of that 4-game homestand. Yes. I did not get rid of Sara. She decided to leave without me pushing her out the door, if that's the best way to put it. She's still alive. Trust me. I assure you of that. What was not alive was this building on Thursday night when the Jets took on the Florida Panthers, because my God, that game was so boring. It was unbelievable. There was like nothing happening through the first 40 minutes. And of course, Florida scores. They get 1-0 after 40 minutes, and the Jets tied up in the third period. They were much better. There was a lot more to watch and be excited about in the third period. And you have to give Florida credit. That's their style of play, and they've won 2 Stanley Cups playing exactly like that. Gritty, hard to get to the front of the net. So give the Jets a lot of credit for fighting through that. And then, of course, the 2-1 shootout loss. I saw a comment a little bit earlier in the rundown here saying that the shootout effort was challenging. It was very hard to watch. Florida's like right in there, got the goals right away. Anton Lundell scored the first goal, and of course they put it away after that. But Kyle Connor made a great move, but just could not get the puck to go. And then Mark Scheifele's shot, I think he was going underneath, inside the far post, or inside the post on the glove side, but just went over top of the net. So they lose that game 2-1. And I agree, it was. I've talked to a lot of people. It was not a fun game to watch. That hurts. No, Sara, viewership is down 25%. That hurts a lot. So I asked Morgan Barron about how challenging it was, to play in that game and to remain patient within their structure, even though nothing was happening for 40 minutes. And here's what Morgan said this morning.
It was a patient game for us, but we've talked about that, kind of staying in those games. And, even when we give up a goal there at the end of the period, we don't kind of break our structure and start trying to chase the game a little bit. I think that's a team that you need to have a lot of discipline to play against them and to stay in those games. So kind of just stuck to our process and kept playing the way that we knew would make us successful. And we're able to tie the game up, and obviously didn't get the 2 points we wanted, but I thought the process was right.
How hard is it to stay in your process when nothing really is happening for the first 40 minutes?
Yeah, it was a boring game. I think we were kind of sitting there. There's just not a lot of chances being traded at either end, but sometimes that's kind of the style that's called for against a team like that, and you see how much success they've had over the past 2 years. I think they're really committed to that when they play. So another opportunity for us to kind of, we look at those, and obviously we'd like to come up with the 2 points and find another goal somewhere, but the structure's there, and those are things we've talked about a lot this year.
Okay, so the discipline that comes into play when you play against a team like Florida, where nothing is happening, they're not giving up a lot. A lot of teams will cheat and try to get offense, and that's when you get in trouble, and Florida feeds off that. So I know it was hard to watch for a lot of people, but we have to give Winnipeg a lot of credit that they stuck with their structure, as Morgan just talked about there, and stayed with it enough to tie the game up. Had a great chance to win it in overtime, and Josh Morrissey rips that shot off the crossbar behind Daniil Tarasov. So the Jets almost won that hockey game and didn't have to go to a shootout. So, Cindy, I hear you. Florida doesn't do great neither. But keep in mind, Florida has a lot of bodies out of their lineup right now. So very challenging to play the system exactly how they want to play it. Don't worry when they get, when Brad Marchand was out of the lineup, when they get him back, they'll start to play a little bit more fun hockey to watch, I guess. But they've done a great job winning 2 Stanley Cups, and you can't argue with that. So the Winnipeg Jets they had an optional skate yesterday. They had a full morning skate today. So let's take a look at the lines today. There is not any changes. Connor Scheifele, Iafallo on the top line, Perfetti, Taves, and Velarde on the second line. Don't touch the second line. Don't touch my third line. Niederreiter, Lowry, Nemestikov, Kepke, Barron, Pearson. Defense pairings, Josh Morrissey, Dylan DeMello, Sandberg, Salamonson, and Stanley, and Shen. And Connor Hellebuck will get the start tonight. Connor Hellebuck playing in his 600th NHL game tonight. So that's a big plus for the Jets netminder. Have to love the way he has played. I saw a very interesting stat when it came to him. There's the 4th time this season Connor Hellebuck posted a save percentage of .950 or higher and still lost. Now, that's the most such losses he's ever had in a season, surpassing 3 in the 17-18 season. And that was 17-18 season, which is incredible to think about how good that team was that year. And they lost, didn't get enough offense. So not a lot of offense going on for the Jets this week. If you think about it, they got shut out by Chicago, scored 3 times against the St. Louis Blues on Tuesday. 2 of those were power play goals. One of them was an empty net goal. And the goal they scored on Thursday against Florida was a 4-on-4 goal. So no 5-on-5 goals so far this week. By the way, just in case you're wondering, Ken Wiebe will be popping by here momentarily. He's supposed to join me at 12:35. I'll keep an eye on him, but looking forward to Wieber's thoughts on the game here this evening against the Detroit Red Wings. Before we get to Ken Wiebe joining us, Logan Stanley. Another excellent game for him. Logan Stanley was my guest on the podcast. We taped that yesterday. Looking forward to releasing that to you. Yesterday, he talked about his impending future. Well, his future is becoming an unrestricted free agent in the offseason. A lot of you are thinking right now, hopefully it doesn't get to that point. But here's Logan Stanley on his future here in Winnipeg.
You definitely think about your future and what's going on. I think everyone would be lying if they said they didn't think about that. There's a lot of aspects you're thinking about, family, kids, everything like that. So, but you try and block it out and come every day and try and work your hardest, and whatever happens. And trying to help this team push to get into that race to make the playoffs, and that's I think what I'm most focused on. The rest of it will take care of itself.
Yeah, I think a lot of the things he said is true. Like there's it can't not help but think about this. This is such a big year for Logan Stanley, and considering the step that he's taken in his National Hockey League career, you could understand why he's wondering what's going to happen. Linda, want to keep big stand and Fets. Of course, Cole Perfetti coming into his restricted free agency again. He'll get a chance. They'll be dealing with that a little bit later. It is Dylan Sandberg's birthday today. There's a lot of things going on, and when a lot of things are going on, you have to bring in somebody that knows how to deal with a lot of things going on, and that is Ken Wiebe of the Winnipeg Free Press and the co-host of Kenny and Rennie. Weber, what's going on, man?
JT, great to be with you. How's everything going over there?
I think it's going good, man.
How's the joy level?
The joy level is always good. I mean, despite what we saw on Thursday night, there were some things to take out of there that were very exciting. And the first thing I want to talk to you about is I love the question you asked Kyle Connor after the game about if teams are defending differently in overtime. We've all seen it. Like It is not as crazy as it used to be, not as fun. How about that? So the teams are becoming more patient and looking like there's a lot more structure. Now, clearly with the Jets, they don't have that second unit that you could throw it out in the ice for offense without Nikolai Ehlers. So what are you seeing that's different about defending in overtime that we haven't seen in years past when Winnipeg is in overtime?
Yeah, JT. The reason behind the question is that overtime used to be the Jets' superpower, right?
Yes.
It was rare that they would get out of the first minute without having locked up a game, given how great Scheifele, Connor, and Morrissey have been in terms of we got the subtle pick plays and backdoor action and all those types of things. So, yeah, teams, it's not as wide open. I'm glad that Scott Arniel was a little bit more expansive in his answer, but again, it also took him a second try. Before, and again, sometimes we understand that it's difficult. I thought the way that I framed the question worked out okay, but because Kyle gave such a short answer, I tried to kind of go a different route with Scott Arniel. And again, we understand it's intense at the end of games, and people are, you're always disappointed when you don't get your 2 points. But again, eventually Scott Arniel came around to saying that it just hasn't been as wide open, and it's interesting. There still are enough scoring chances, it seems. It's just not as, it used to be topsy-turvy, end to end. Thered be one chance missed, and then, it's a 2-on-1 one way, 2-on-1 the other way, things like that. But we're not seeing as much of that. But again, and I took no offense from what Kyle was saying. Kyle is very good at X and O questions, which is why I thought I would give it to him in that regard. But it was just one of those days where he was not in the mood to expand, I guess. But yeah, I think teams are a little bit, and I think it's also, Jamie, it's more a matter of how important that extra point is nowadays. I think before there wasn't, I'm not saying there was an entertainment value was front of mind, but I do think that teams were a little bit more, open to being wide open, and we're not seeing that. I don't know if that's coaching or just, teams adapting, but I still enjoy overtime, but it definitely is not as wild as it used to be.
Well, yeah, you don't look forward to it as much. when it happened. It's just like it's clearly there's going to be more space, and especially in a game like the one we watched on Thursday, anything was better with the space at 3-on-3, and we saw things open up at 4-on-4, and that's where the Jets got their goal in the third period. But it's not the fire wagon hockey where you just sit there on the edge of your seat the whole time like it used to be. When you think of the Jets, like there was that stretch, Kenny, where they didn't, like everything they threw the net, it was going in, or there was a rebound, they're going to clean it up. Now all of a sudden you have run into a week where they've been shut out once, they've scored one goal, and they've only no goals at 5-on-5.
Right.
So it's the question was asked to Morgan Barron today. It's about getting those greasy goals, which is what they were getting the week before and for a stretch of time, and all of a sudden that stopped. How much is that on the shoulders of the opposition, that being Chicago, St. Louis, and Florida, not allowing those greasy goals to happen?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly part of it, JT. I mean, obviously, when the Jets are at their best, they have a group of players that, are skilled and score off the rush. And then they have another group of players that also do a great job of getting to the blue paint and kind of taking care of a little bit of that elbow grease kind of special. Nino Niederreiter's made a career of being around the net, scoring goals of that nature. So I expect him to spend a little bit more time around the blue paint here in the coming days. So, yeah, I mean, it's not as concerning because the Jets did score an even strength goal, right? You mentioned it came at 4-on-4, and it's just that's an example. It's funny. It's a greasy goal, but it's also an incredibly skilled play at the same time in terms of how Jonathan Toews is able to win a stick battle with the defenseman, steal the puck, and then just make a brilliant pass that was so good. Cole Perfetti didn't even see it.
That's what I was going to say. He said he didn't even see it. Like he didn't see the play coming at all. That's when
the pass
was. Yeah,
that's how on the tape it was, and those are the kind of goals that again you went to the right, you go to the right areas. That Perfetti went to the net. Toews wins a battle, gets the puck out in front, and there's now the patience in the backhand and the skill part takes over. But that's all work. That's a worker bee goal, right? So that was an impressive play there. But yeah, I don't think. I mean, what we are seeing. I mean, the Jets aren't scoring as much 5-on-5, but they're also a couple games removed from 3-point game for Scheifele and Morrissey. So like it's an interesting block of time here for the Jets, Jamie, and the other part of that too. I mean, Jets went to bed 6 back. They came to the rink today 8 back. So like there's that push and pull here. I mean, you can't get overwhelmed by looking at the standings, but at the same time, to know that a team has gone 5-1-2 in their last 8 and essentially only made up 3 points of ground, right? That
was 11.
Right. I mean, that part could be. I'm not saying it's frustrating for them. I think it's frustrating for the fan base. I think the players are putting in the same amount of work regardless. But, to go on that kind of a heater and barely make up any ground, I think that's just a reminder of how tough it's going to be to make up those 8 points. But at the same time, if you're the Jets, you're also thinking, well, that's one regulation loss in 8.
Yeah.
And, quite frankly, yes, they got shut out, but that's a game that they probably should have won based on what they generated and what they gave up in Chicago and the emotion of it and all of those things. So, I mean, they put themselves, this is simple, JT. When you lose at 11 in a row, that's a lot of ground to make up. I mean, you know what I mean? Like that's a tough part of that stretch for the Jets. But again, there's still also 32 games left on the schedule, and that's a lot of available points. And if you're the Jets, you know what it takes down the stretch. And this is not a knock on other teams, JT, but some of the teams they are chasing have either not fared overly well during the grind of the schedule or haven't been in position to grind. I mean, San Jose has been a bottom feeder for the last few years, playing great, but there's no recent evidence of that group being able to sustain their level of play down the stretch. Utah, whether they were in Arizona or Salt Lake, it's an adjustment for them. They're normally a good front-running team that has had trouble closing. So Seattle, non-playoff team for a little bit of time here. So Chicago, rebuilding. St. Louis, we know they have experience coming from way back. But a lot of the teams they're chasing, no one really knows, including the players and the coaching staff, how they're going to hold up. So, if you're the Jets, you can't worry about how the other teams are going to hold up. You got to take care of your own part of the equation. But for me, that's why it's a little bit more wide open or a glimmer of hope-ish if you're the Jets players and fan base than to just say, well, it's 5 teams to jump over and 8 back. It's an impossible task. Definitely an uphill task, but there's some elements that are going to be at play here that the games get harder. After January, when the calendar flips, games get harder. Olympic break, when teams come back, games are going to get even harder, and the intensity level and urgency, all that's going to ratchet up. So it'll be fun to see how those teams handle it.
Is it fair to say, like, the Jets will make a decision where they're headed leading out, like after where they're at the Olympic break? Is it fair to sit there and go, okay, we're here, now we can make a decision what direction we're going? Is that too small considering the amount of games that are still left and the team that this is?
It's a great question, JT, and I think only Kevin Cheveldayoff and his staff will know for sure. But I mean, we know that these are the type of discussions that are taking place at scouting meetings that just wrapped up a couple weeks back. They have to have an idea, because there's an arbitrary deadline and a real deadline, right? I mean, there's a roster freeze, there's a 3-week break in there. If you wait till the last week, it may be hard to get all of your business done. But until you get to that Olympic break, it's hard to determine, what level, maybe the potential trades are going to be moving to, Jamie. So that's the interesting part with Kevin Cheveldayoff. We know what is on the horizon. They have, I think, 8 players that are pending UFAs. Those guys, you kind of have an idea if you can't sign them by the deadline. It's not like the Ehlers situation last year, Jamie, where the team was first overall, and yes, you knew there was a risk of losing him in free agency, for nothing. But if you're looking at situations with Logan Stanley and some of those other players, based on the position they're in the standings, you're not treating it the exact same way. And if you don't sign, if you're not able to get an extension done, you're probably going to have to pivot to the trade, the trade route. And I mean, you heard what Logan Stanley was saying on Friday. I mean, this is when you're dealing with your future, like this is real time. Like you're dealing with these things, and as a player, you're not sure, right? I mean, you're trusting your agent in this situation. Obviously, there is dialogue, but it's a stressful time for all players. Just had a chance to talk with Mason Appleton about what July 1st was like, JT. I mean, you wait your whole life to be a pending UFA, except sometimes when you get into that situation, all of a sudden there's not 10 offers on the house that you're trying to sell here, right? So it's an interesting time for a lot of players. And I do think the Jets have an idea. And Jamie, what we know is that because of the limited draft capital, because of the trades in the last few years at the deadline, it's harder for the Jets to be buyers, even if they wanted to be buyers, with no second and no fourth in each of the next 2 years. And knowing that they're, 30th overall, that first round pick this year, I think, is off limits. I think is the only thing that I see as an absolute,
right?
Just because it could be top 5, essentially. I mean, and you don't, if you're the Jets and you're in this situation, you can't run the risk of saying, well, let's load up right now for a rental player. And, even if you get it top 5 protected, that doesn't matter to you, because you need the protection, because you need that top 5 pick if that's the position you finish in the standings. But again, lots of runway here in terms of how things will be determined. And yeah, for me, I think they'll have a much more crystallized view of where they're at. If it's a double-digit deficit going into the Olympic break, I think it becomes a little bit more clear at least how deep the selling portion might go. Yeah. But again, it's the Jets right now have the ability to make that decision more difficult for Kevin Cheveldayoff, or easy, right? Depending on how they play in this next block of games.
That's the point here. When it comes to people say who they're going to go out and get, what they're going to do, without a second and fourth on the next 2 drafts, it makes things extremely challenging to add, because you do not want to clear out the cupboards even more than you already have in the next 2 drafts. You just talked about an impending unrestricted free agent. Have you ever seen what has happened to Logan Stanley anywhere in the National Hockey League where he was like on the way out in some ways,
right? And
now has become a fan favorite in a span of a calendar year. I've never seen this before, and I'm happy for Logan, but I've just never seen anything like this before.
Yeah, it's certainly been one of the wilder stories to follow during the 15 seasons the Jets have been playing, and I've been fortunate to cover all of them. I don't recall this type of flipping of the script by a player. Now, I love to hear what Logan said yesterday, that he's proud of the progress he's making, but
Yes.
he still sees holes in his game. And that's what you want to hear from a player, that level of honesty. And I mean, we know what the online views have been, and there still is room for improvement on the defensive side for Logan Stanley. You know it, I know it, he knows it. Scott O'Neill knows it, Dean Chanelth knows it, but at least there's an admission that he's still working on those aspects of his game. He understands he's on a career high shooting percentage heater, but let's also not forget the fact that he's generating shots and shot attempts at a much different level based on the confidence he is playing with. So, and we know the trajectory as well. I mean, there were some injuries, the back-to-back ankle issues. I mean, that was tough to deal with for him. I mean, it hasn't been smooth, and no one's forgetting that there were hiccups along the way. Logan was a project draft pick. He knew it. Mark Hillier knew it. But there's also been a lot of progress. Offensive side, obviously, is at the front of that discussion. And he's positioned himself. And JT, this is the other part. Timing is everything in this business. We've seen it with Neil Pionk. His best years have come in contract years. When that happens, you get a raise. That's part of the deal. And Logan has earned a raise. To what degree it's going to be, we'll see. But it's probably for the folks who are, even for the folks who are reluctant to think that this is the new version, a new and improved version, it's going to be north of 4, and it might even be at 5. So depending on the term, 4 years, 5 years, he's going to be 28 years old, JT.
Yeah.
When you're that age as a player and you've had your best season, you're looking to cash in. Logan enjoys it here. Yes, I understand people have mentioned the trade request. That's 2023. A lot has happened for Logan Stanley since 2023. We know in the building, again, I'm reluctant to use Line-A-esque, but there's a sense of anticipation in the building that we haven't seen since when the puck is on his stick and things of that nature. So again, you got to take a kind of 4D view on this, JT. You're not forgetting the previous seasons, but you're also seeing a player that is trying to turn the corner and knows that there's more of him to give. He's a unicorn in a lot of ways, right? I mean, there are very few 6'7" defensemen in the NHL. That's why it sucks for him, because the comparisons are always to a Hall of Fame player, because that's one of the only template players there are out there. There have been some others. I mean, Jamie Alexiak is still in the league as well. But anyways, it's
nothing like Zdeno Chara though. Like it's just like
but that's one of one. I mean, that player is one of one.
But I could see the comparison between the two, though. I think Chara is a little bit more
late
happy.
bloomer.
Yeah. Yes. So
anyways, it's super interesting, JT. And it's Logan has put himself in a good position, whether he's staying here or if he's having to move on via trade and then free agency. I mean, players earn that right. That doesn't mean he's turning his back on Winnipeg. There were some hard times, but he also pressed through those hard times. And we know from talking to him that he's enjoyed his time here. And I mean, of course you'd love to get cheered when you've been booed before. I mean, that's only natural for a player. And, again, these guys have long memories and everything else, but I don't think Logan Stanley is holding it against people. He knew he needed to be better. He's found a way to be better, and he needs to continue to get better. But I think the most important thing for Logan in this last stretch, moving to the right side, playing top 4 minutes. I mean, he's shown that ability to handle more minutes. And whereas in the past, when the minutes were, when he was promoted to a second pairing with Neil Pionk, it didn't go as smoothly for him. And again, that's different level of competition. That's hard matchups, but he's handled them better than he has even earlier this year, and maybe last year when Sandberg was out. So that's important for him. But again, this is an unfinished product, which is what makes the situation so interesting, because, on one half you have, sunk cost fallacy folks. And then you have folks that say, well, this might be closer to the new normal. It may not be, double digits in goals every year, but what if it's 6 to 8 goals instead of 1 goal, and you can find a way to still get that defensive element up? Maybe the minutes go up, and now in your thinking process, it's not $5 million a year for a third pairing guy. It's 4.5 to 5 for a guy who could be your fifth defenseman that can play in your top four if necessary. Whereas before, right now, he's behind Josh Morrissey and Dylan Sandberg on the left side. So the fact that he's been able to move over to the right side and actually handle those minutes, I mean, we saw it in the other game as well, JT. When the game was on the line, Logan Stanley's playing on the right side of Dylan Sandberg. So that's an element we haven't seen a lot of. I'm not saying it's the future, but I am saying it's something that is maybe, I'm not going to say complicated the discussion, but it's added another layer of depth to the discussion that, maybe even the Jets brass were not sure about. So it's a fascinating stretch of time here. And, it's one of those things that Jets fans and people who follow the team are going to be watching closely.
Let's last one for you. We talked about grumbling with Logan Stanley for a considerable amount of time here, but there was grumbling in Detroit when the Red Wings just never seemed to reach expectations. Steve Yzerman could not do anything wrong for the longest time. All of a sudden, there was like, it's time to get rid of the Stevie Y plan. Suddenly, his patience has paid off. The Red Wings are amongst the top teams in the Eastern Conference and certainly in the National Hockey League. Watching them, when you have, what is different about this group than you have seen in years past?
Yeah, it's a fun team to watch. They're the kind of perfect blend of, youthful enthusiasm and, grizzled experience, right? They have a nice blend of players that they can score, but they also, have sort of tilted towards guys who can play smart defensively in terms of their forward group. Moritz Seider is a legit top, 5 to 7 NHL defenseman. He's going to be getting Norris votes. Had a great chat with all the former Jets today, Ben Sherratt, Andrew Kopp, and Mason Appleton, and all of them are raving about the mix on the mix of the team. They're a complex group because they bring a lot of different elements. They got some fun young players who have really jumped up and done an incredible job. That kind of, middle-aged veteran like an Alex DeBrincat. We don't see them a lot, JT, but we saw him when he was in Chicago and, a little bit in Ottawa. This is a guy who, him and Jason Robertson are probably wondering what they had to do to get on the team, in the U.S. Olympic team, and it just hasn't worked out. But yeah, I mean, it's a team that's, playing really good hockey. They're battling for the best record in the Eastern Conference. We know at the start of the year, goaltending wasn't as sharp as what maybe was expected from Cam Talbot and especially John Gibson. They've been getting great goaltending. Their special teams, I think, are pretty good. They don't score a ton, but they have a lot of guys that are able to score. But, in bringing in Andrew Kopp, JT Compher, they've added that extra layer of defending. And I love the job that Todd McClellan is doing, JT. I mean, Todd McClellan was coaching in the International Hockey League my first year covering hockey in this market back in 2000. Not trying to age myself, but I've seen Todd, go from a young dynamic coach to a rock solid veteran who knows what the expectations are and makes them abundantly clear to his players. He's very direct. He has a certain level of expectation, and it's why he's had a lot of success in this league, no matter where he's been. But you have that buy-in and you have that team that's really grown up. And the other part, JT, that's scary for some folks, Grand Rapids Griffins, who are also in town this weekend facing the Moose, they've got the best record in the American Hockey League. They're like the Avalanche of the American League. They've had I think 3 regulation losses this year. So there's more guys coming. There's more kind of veteran 4A players in reserve. Sebastian Cosa is having a good year between the pipes. And yeah, I mean, they're a fun team. I mean, it's taken a lot longer than they had hoped, but looks like the Yzer plan is starting to come to fruition here. And again, they're not taking any victory laps here. They know they're going to have to, learn some lessons in the playoffs. But, that's also part of the reason why Yzerman brought in some of these guys from the Jets that were on that 2018 team that went to the Western Conference Final to be helping these guys prepare some of those young guys for their first foray into the, Stanley Cup playoffs. So I like the way that they play. They're fun to watch. Yes, there is a run and gun element, but they also check really, really tough. And that's what makes them, challenging to play against. And like I said, the players obviously have to buy in, but I think Todd McClellan's done just a tremendous job. And, his quote from this morning was, we're still taking the test. The test is not over. Todd knows that this is also a team that has kind of got to the, quarter or third quarter pole and then kind of wilted down the stretch, or not necessarily wilted, but weren't able to get over the hump
even in years where they were above the line. So I think they're 12 points clear of a playoff spot right now, but they're not putting it into cruise control. Like
Yeah.
they know that there's a lot of work ahead, but they also are a team that has great history and they have big goals, and they're not happy just to be part of the party. They want to be celebrating at the end, like so many of those Red Wings teams did before them.
Buddy, I appreciate the insight as always, and thanks for stepping in for Sarah. Decided to take the weekend off. We love her anyways. Can't take a day off in the National Hockey League, but Sarah didn't get that memo.
Thanks for having me, my friend.
Hey, man, have a great show on Kenny and Rennie tonight after the game.
Appreciate it.
See you, buddy. Thanks, man. Ken Wiebe joining us from the Kenny and Rennie Show. Make sure you tune into that right after the Jets game tonight. Some great analysis coming from him and Sean. So he'll be ready for that as well. They are playing the Red Wings tonight, so let's hear some comments from the dressing room and the coach about the opponent this evening.
Yeah, same as kind of what we saw in Detroit. They got some young, skilled players with a good core and good veterans, and obviously they're rolling right now, so it's going to be a good test for us. They're playing well, so I think limiting their rush game will be huge. They can make plays and score off the rush, so good F3 and try to have good gaps and kind of snuff that out.
Yeah, obviously we've seen them once this year, and you see where they are in the standings. They have a ton of skill, and I think they play a hard game too, so it's going to be a good challenge for us tonight. But like you said, it kind of seems like we have a different challenge coming in every night, so we've just been trying to embrace them and kind of show up and play our brand of hockey.
All right, there's some comments about the opponent tonight. So we've seen a lot of people thinking or remembering at the time that Patrick Kane is now has been a member of the Detroit Red Wings for a while. Him and Jonathan Toews have already met earlier this year. Of course, that was on New Year's Eve. And of course, Patrick Kane is very close to becoming the highest scoring American-born player in NHL history. We just throw that board up, the graphic. In 3, 2, 1. There it is. The all-time points leaders among U.S.-born players. Mike Modano has held the record for 18-plus years. There is Patrick Kane, a very young man. I believe that's after the 2007 NHL draft. He's there with Phil Housley and Joey Mullen. Of course, Phil Housley, Winnipeg Jet for some time, but he is 3 points away from passing Mike Modano as the all-time U.S. Points leader among U.S.-born players. So we'll keep an eye on that tonight. Hopefully it doesn't happen here this evening. He was in Minnesota the other night, and Mike Modano is currently working for the Minnesota Wild organization. Let's take a look at the standings heading into this evening's action as well. You heard Ken talk about it. They are 8 points out of a playoff spot right now. They're behind the San Jose Sharks, who sit in that final wild card spot. In the conference right now, they got Chicago, Nashville, Seattle, Los Angeles in front of them right now. And you heard Kenny talk about the inconsistent play amongst these teams the Jets are playing. You look at Chicago, they're 5-4-1 their last 10. Nashville's been pretty good, but they're 6-4 in their last 10. Seattle's been terrible. They're 3-5-2 in their last 10. So a lot of inconsistent play. So the reality is there is an opportunity for the Winnipeg Jets to make the playoffs, but they got to start getting some points. They've done a great job of that lately. They will hopefully get 2 points tonight as they take on the Red Wings. Puck drop is about 6:10. Hockey night games, the puck drop tends to be a little bit later, but it'll be right here at Canada Life Center. Final game of the 3-game homestand. They'll start a 4-game homestand next week in New Jersey. So on behalf of Ken Wiebe and myself, Sarah Lesky will be back the next time we do this. Thanks for watching. Check in, everybody. Enjoy the game tonight.